Welcome to The Strength Connection with me, your host, Michael Kurkowski. And in this podcast, I connect with some of the great coaches and leaders in the world of strength, whether it be physical, mental, or spiritual. One of the main questions I've tried to answer and more so understand is how does our physical strength, mental, emotional, and spiritual sides of strength connect together to ultimately help us achieve the success we desire, but also enjoy the process of life. And my guest today, Dr. Chris Holder, is one of those that has dove into this at a masterful level. Dr. Holder is a world-class strength and conditioning coach. He's a former Master RKC instructor. He's a doctor of Medical QiGong and Eastern medicine, and he's now a teacher and leader in Christian Mysticism. In his career, he has been able to blend the Western styles of strength training systems with Eastern practices of energy and holistic healing. And I wanted to bring him onto the podcast to talk about his life of practice and how he's developed these philosophies that have proven successful over and over again. Truly one of the most interesting people I've ever spoken to in so many different areas of health and of strength. So thank you so much for checking it out, and please do me the biggest favor and subscribe to the channel to catch more episodes that are dropped every single week here. It means the world to me. All right, let's dive into this episode with Dr. Chris Holder. All right, and we're live. Dr. Chris Holder, welcome to the Strength Connection. Good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you too, my friend. How you been?
I've been great, thank you. Yeah, it's been too long. I know it's been quite a few years since we last connected, but I appreciate you coming back on.
Of course, my pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, so I've been really pumped to talk to you. Since the last time we spoke and seeing the work that you're doing, I know there's been a lot of changes that have gone on with the work that you're doing and stuff. But if you can, just kind of to kick this off, explain to everybody who you are, the work that you've done, and now kind of what you're focused on now in the work that you're doing in your practice.
Yeah. So you and I found one another because of our common love for weight training and kettlebells and all the things, right? I spent a lot of years, over 2 decades, working as a strength and conditioning coach for universities, and then I finished my last couple of years at Modern Day High School in Southern California, and enjoyed that part of my life and loved obviously the lifting weights piece. It was such a cornerstone to my athletic career, and even as a kid growing up, I was fascinated with muscle magazines and all that type of stuff. So, but it got to a point where I had completed my doctorate in Chinese medicine years prior to retiring from coaching. Fell in love with how Chinese medicine works and the ideas behind it, and so that was always sitting in the background, simmering, waiting, right? Is waiting its turn. And I had completed my doctorate about halfway through my coaching career, and then as my life went through its seasons, coaching became something that was I kind of fell out of love with it. I think a lot of coaches and trainers that are probably listening to this, they can relate to a certain degree. There's you have burnout, and you have the expectations of the young coach when you started, like your just hair's on fire and you're going to help everybody.
It's an
And over
idealistic
time,
mind, yeah.
yeah, it's such an right. And I sat down and calculated one time, and we were probably around 15,000 athletes that I had coached over the course of 15,000 people. Like, are you kidding me? And it's an accurate number because of, jumps to new positions and all type of stuff at different locations. That number just continued to swell. And I reached a burnout point that I just couldn't recover from. And so Chinese medicine stuff was always in the background simmering, and was sort of my side gig, and it now has become my primary gig. And so I currently have 3 practices, one in Southern California in Newport Beach, and then we have practice in Palm Beach, Florida, and in up in New York. And so my business partner and I have opened clinics, and I do a lot of remote work, and we're seeing people from all walks of life. So not just the healthy trying to get strong, and how the Chinese medicine can really complement that, but also people who are in a true health fight. And we specialize in the cancers and a lot of the chronic disease that Western medicine seems to be stumped by, right? And then, as you can see in the background, there's an altar there and all my stuff. So I spent a lot of years training, was ordained in 3 different focused versions of spirituality, one of which is Christian Mysticism, which is now kind of my forte. I teach Christian Mysticism classes online. I've got 2 cohorts running right now, and it's been a really beautiful transition. Most guys who kind of lose their way in their first profession stumble, a little bit, but I was it seems like the heavens have embraced my decision and have provided the people that I need, and presented me the people that I can help. And that's the most important thing.
I love it. Yeah. So, one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you, just from the all the work that you've done from the physical side of strength and conditioning, but also the other side, the spiritual connection, the mindset side, and how they all connect. And this is if I've had one real question or fascination over the last 3, 4 years, this has been how do these blend together? I think as a culture too, we're almost in a spiritual revolution. A lot of people are asking these questions again, and I think eventually you get to a point where there's time for structure, there's time for discipline, but there's the other piece of it. There's the what does this all mean? How does this all blend together and work together? And I think spirituality really comes into that. So with that though, like when you started getting into Eastern style medicine, more of like the esoteric types of healing and practices, what prompted you to get into that work? You were already very successful on the strength and conditioning side. You were a Master RKC. What brought about the fascination to look at this lens?
Hey, it's such a cool question, because when I think about the time when I decided to go that direction or to start studying, was probably when I was at my peak of my career. I mean, in the strength and conditioning, I didn't need it, right? So that's kind of the first way of answering it, sort of a Tarantino way of answering things. It presented a time my family was starting, my son was just born, we were killing it where I was, we were winning bowl games, like it was fantastic. And then this odd, you know, proposition was presented to me from a training client that I had about, hey, there's this guy coming out of retirement up in Monterey, California. I was in San Jose at the time, the South San Francisco area of California, and he's coming out of retirement. He's teaching this thing, and I was like, what the heck do I need this for, right? And it was presented to me as like, your toolkit will be more well-rounded, right? So during that time, I had the RKC thing rolling. I was deep in the kettlebell culture. I was doing the Z Health thing because that was kind of a common offshoot for many of what we kettlebellers were doing. And I was really falling in love with the medicine side of things because I had a really refined sports medicine background from education, and then obviously all the strength stuff I was doing. And so to answer your question, and I'm going to keep it kind of vague because I could just go on and put everybody to sleep. It came at the most inopportune time. It was literally, wasn't asked for, it wasn't anything. However, it was presented, and it was presented in such a powerful way. And what I mean by that is I denied it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And it was coming to a point where they were going to close this last cohort ever, right? Which ended up not being ever, but ever at that time. And there was this weird desire that I had that I couldn't put a finger on, right? Like when we get hungry, I want a cheeseburger, I want whatever it is your thing, right? You know what you want. I had this hunger that I couldn't figure out what it was. And as we came closer to this closing time, I denied it for a last time, and they closed the program down. And at that point, I felt this giant sense of doom come over me.
Mm.
So for someone who was raised Catholic, okay, so I'm showing you all my cards. I was raised Catholic, but I chose sports like most kids do when they get into their teenage years, and broke my mother's heart.
Yep.
Yeah. She wanted me she wanted me to go to catechism and CCD and all the Wednesday things. I was like, football's practicing on Wednesday, Ma, right? And so, but there was a piece of me that always got it. And so we made some phone calls. I had people kind of vouch for me and speak on my my discipline and integrity and all those things, and I ended up getting a special pass into the program. And it was, when I tell the story in its entirety, it was like going home to a group of people I never knew, and I never realized that they were going to be family for me. Like I was this big, strong strength guy, like a jock, going into this basically hippie den,
Right.
right? You go into esoteric Chinese medicine, and we're in Santa Cruz, California, Monterey area. It's just crowded with people, new agey type folks. And I walk in, and I'm clearly the oddball in the group. However, something inside of me was like, you're home. And so I fell in love with the medicine. I fell in love with the spirituality of it, because the Chinese are pretty meticulous on how they do things, right? So you're martial. So for all of us Westerners, think your physical culture, right? So martial to them is like our weight training fitness side. And then they're energetic, which is this medicine piece, and the mental breath, all that type of thing that most of us are becoming more familiar with as fitness is kind of catching up with what they've always known. And then the spiritual thing, yeah. And so it was this holistic approach to how do we get the body ready for competition. That was my first priority. And now we're helping people get out of, you know, stage 4 cancer and stuff like that. Like I talk about, my business partner was a person who came to me. She was dying of brain cancer, and it was spread everywhere in her body. And because of the way our medicine, you know, how it behaves, and we look at the human body in a very different way than Western doctors do.
Mm.
And when you hear someone, well, I've been given a terminal diagnosis. Well, you have a terminal diagnosis because their tools, the only tools that they have, can't solve your problem. So to them, you're terminal because there's no other solution in their toolkit. But if you come to my toolkit, here's all these other things we can look at, right? And so my business partner was someone we got a healing for, and she, in about 3.5, 4 months, went from stage 4, dying, get your funeral arrangements together, to vibrant and alive and full of energy and healed. And she then jumped into this last cohort, at least with my teacher. And she got her doctorate, and now we're trying to set the world on fire with this. So it's been really, really great. And the way the worlds collide is it goes back to that definition of martial, which is that physical culture, right? And then you have the other two, the energetic and spiritual. When we talk about getting strong, when we talk about, you know, recovering our health or reclaiming our health, when we talk about when's the most optimal times to do this in the day and that in the day and all those things, when you look at how Chinese medicine operates, all the answers are laid out in a very beautiful way. You just have to know where to look. You need to know how to ask the right questions. And so we've been able to take, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with, you know, professional athletes, college athletes, and then like private, you know, high level high school athletes. And you're tuning the body like you do with your nutrition, right? We need to eat well because the food's going to supply all the energy and all the things we need for the rebuild. Well, what most people don't understand is your breath hygiene, right? Your, you know, how you breathe and all those things. And it's not just fight or flight and parasympathetic and all the, you know, the sciencey stuff we can throw around. It's about the energy that we're pulling into the body from external, internal, and how it's creating balance within the system, right? The organs of the body, all the tissues of the body, they're all governed by very specific, very sophisticated systems. Well, when you understand how that whole system works together on all 3 levels, not just the physical, and God bless you, my Western doctors, but they focus on the physical. We actually, the physical is just keeping score. So it's like the scoreboard in the game. It's not truly what's going on in the game. It's just telling us what the score is. What's happening on the field or on the court are the spirit and the energetics, and we can work through those items, get people back in balance, recover their health, and get them back in the game, for a really cheap and lame analogy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I love it. There's so many threads I want to pull on this. The beginning spot when you said like you kind of felt like home, I think everybody understands that feeling of like what you mean from there. But with that, was it more of like an overarching like umbrella feeling, or was there specific practices that you were doing within the cohort that felt like, no, this was something that was missing that I need to explore more? Like, was it something specific that you did throughout that time that you knew that, oh, I need to add this into my life and maybe eventually into the people that I work with?
So here's the answer. So that, right? This is the jam right here. Yeah. My spirit knew I needed to be here. So there was like an exhale or relaxation through like how my spirit was like, okay, you finally arrived to where we've been trying to direct you for this last however long, right? It's this knowing without knowing type idea. So it's more of that umbrella. It wasn't more as we were getting things and I was like placing things together. I had made a promise to myself when I started the program. I knew I was going to be hearing some things that were just totally foreign to me. The medicine is completely different than Western medicine. So whatever expertise I thought I had, it was useless because they're speaking literally and figuratively another language. And so when I walked into that space, it wasn't about, ooh, I loved what we were doing, or ooh, I loved the teacher, or I met all these really neat people and they were my friends. It was walking in the door and feeling the energy of the space, and there was this welcome home feeling, right? Think of being on the road, right? I'm sure you travel a ton. Yeah, all of the listeners here, we're on the road. We go on vacation, or we, go on a business trip or whatever it is. And even no matter how much fun we're having on the road, it's always great to come home and opening your front door and being back in your space. It had that kind of flavor to it, and it was a place I'd never been before, yet I knew I was home. And so it was a really driving moment for me because we spend so much time orienting from our physical body, our eyes, and what we're hearing and feeling and sensing. The five senses, I guess, would be the best way to say it. And rarely do we have these really profound, like, snapshot moments where we're not using our senses here. We're relating back to, like, the spirit's like, oh, thank goodness we're here. Finally, he's finally heard the call and he's shown up, and now he gets the magic that's about to unfold is for the next several years that I was with that group.
Yeah, it's amazing how energy stays in certain spots and you can feel it when you get there. This was something I saw a lot when I started working from home, and after the lockdown, when everybody was training from home too, it was the same thing where you used to go to a gym. We couldn't do that for a while, and like there was an energy, a feel when you stepped in there that you immediately got into the mindset of like, all right, this is where I go to get strong. Now all of a sudden that place was taken away. Everybody had to build a new energy and a new space in their spot. And I found like I kept one side of my home. This is only where I go and work out. Like I don't do anything else here. And it was a lot easier to step into that space and get into that energy and stay focused on the training that I needed to do at that time.
Right. Sounds like and I know a lot of people really suffered during the pandemic. So for those of you listening who had a tough time, like we're thinking about you. But for me, it was also one of those times where I was figuring out who I was. We were stuck at home, but I was doing, like, with Zoom, right? Had we put our money, Michael, in Zoom around that time, like, we would be
I know,
filthy
right?
rich. Because you don't realize, and all of a sudden it became so requisite about just getting through the day. And that was for everyone, right? But we were in the middle of, during that time, a 16 module doctoral program for the energy medicine, and I was one of the teachers for that. And we had just finished number three of 16, and they were meeting quarterly. Okay, and so you kind of fall in love with your students, you fall in love with the students with one another, and all of a sudden, pandemic begins. And so for me, I ended up using that as an opportunity to do like we were teaching daily qigong things. So for the doctors, they have to do personal cultivation, and they have a lot of training they have to do. I led it all for 6 months, twice a day, every day on Zoom, and it was really powerful, really nurturing for all of us. But it helped to also continue to redefine the idea of how it's impacting everybody's mental health, because everybody, we were all pretty scared. I'm sure you had moments where, like, I don't know what this is about, and it's frightening and just so unusual for all of us. And what it did is it helped us keep our wits about us. It helped us keep our emotions in check, helped us continue to thrive as a group. But yeah, the idea of setting up a place in your house, right? That's my workout place, and I don't do anything else there because I want that dedicated space where that energy is
Yeah.
just workout energy, right? My backyard over here, that was my spot. Yeah, don't bother me. It's me and the birds, right?
Mhm.
I'll be out there for an hour, and then 12 hours later, I'm out there for another hour, and me and the birds and my Zoom, right? But it was pretty wonderful during that time for me specifically. I was one of the ones that got to benefit from that closed door time.
Yeah. How did you, after, now going deep dive into the Eastern style of medicine, but also having the experience of the Western structured strength training, like the discipline side, and then you blended them together in that, how did you go about putting those together and making it digestible for more of like a Western culture when you were working with athletes and youth athletes? How was that process for you? Was it met very easily, or was there a lot of skepticism to it?
So again, I'll try not to be too long-winded with this. We're still figuring out how to deliver the message in a graceful way. No matter what I say, it comes off odd, right? So I immediately, when I'm talking to anybody about Chinese medicine, like, you understand acupuncture, kind of what they're trying to do, right? And I'm praying for that, yes, because everybody has at least a little bit of understanding that
This is a
there's something going
familiar
on there.
ground, yeah.
Yeah, it's familiar, right? And then I position our medicine just adjacent to that. It's taken me a long time. and we're still working through it. Where I'm almost done developing, and we're like patent pending ideas type level stuff on the marriage of all this and how it works for strength athletes for performance specifically. But the one of the big things for me was, and I don't know if we talked about this the last time we were together. You still see I'm a substantial physically. Yeah, I'm still a big guy. I don't look like, I don't have the man bun and the silk karate gi on. Like, I'm not trying to like pose as like a Chinese
You don't
Tai Chi.
scream Qigong. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I'm still me. I'm
Yeah.
still a meathead, right? And I'm very proud of it. I still, physically I'm like an offensive lineman still. And I still love my training, all those things. So my job was always to, how do I bridge the two and get it into the hands of people who aren't going to be off put by me trying to parade around as something else. Because, with this culture specifically, meaning the one I'm in, the Qigong, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, Chinese medicine, a lot of what they do, they keep secret, right? It's like they want to hide behind, because, if you know what I'm doing, then you'll know. And that idea comes back from, if you think of hundreds of years ago in rural China, our family had our Tai Chi form, and we developed it, and it was powerful, and we had very specific things that were unique to us. And
Right.
when the Marauders were coming over, if they knew what we were doing, they knew how to defend it. So that culture was always about keep everything within the family, keep everything nice and tight, and we don't share with anybody. You have to qualify to have the information shared. Well, that's kind of never ended, and it's
Mm.
frustrating to me, right? It's a it's a tough culture to overcome, because everybody in it still wants to be secretive, and it's just pre-programmed, and we're trying to shatter that entire worldview by, like, I have and we're going to invite you and your listeners to it, and I can get you all the connections you need. Every morning at 7 a.m., my business partner and I teach a Qigong set, and it's 7 a.m. Pacific time. It's free to everybody. We don't charge anything for it. And, we have this giant class that's going right now. And then every day there's somebody new, and it's starting to turn into this. It's going to be a monster here soon. To expose people to the energy, to expose people to a really tried and true, proven set that works for just general health and rebalance, and getting health initiated back in the system, and people taking charge of their lives. But trying to get this out to people, because they've kept it so secret for so long, has been difficult to do, because nobody really knows unless you're in these circles. We just sound like goofballs, right? And so my job, and Dr. Wolf's job, Heather Wolf is my partner. She's one of these really fantastic people who's just got huge, positive, lovely energy. And so the people that take the class are like, she's the best part of their day, because she comes at them just joy and happiness. And it's like the only time of my day that's actually, I feel like I'm smiling. I feel like we got a chance here, is when I'm taking that class with her. So we're trying to spread some really powerful ideas, and obviously the medicine and the energetics of it all, so people can get back in the game, literally.
That's so fascinating that there's still this tight-lipped culture, to it of like not let too many things out because, nowadays it seems like information is shared so easily and stuff. You have to cut through the bullshit more rather than finding really the good stuff. But it's interesting with the practices of it, and I'm always curious why more people don't fully adopt it. Because when I see people who have practiced, Qigong or Tai Chi, just seeing them on a deeper level, I've met so many people who are practitioners of strength and masters in what they do. The ones who really understand the Eastern practices just live a much more calm and much more seem like aligned life. And that's what I'm trying to get to in my life. Like, it's fun to be big and strong, but no, you want to look joyful and look happy in your life. So I was like, okay, there's definitely, something to this.
And if you think about it like this, so I'll speak it into weightlifting terms that most Americans understand. The weight training part of it, we go in there, we kick ass, everything's high tension, like let's lift as heavy as we can, like perfect form, all the things that we preach, and we're going to just push our limits, right? So we're really, really great at going super yang, I'll speak Chinese terms, very yang into our training. The problem is our lives, most of our lives, I'll say at least, when we go off to work or families and all those things, and because of, some of the things I've already mentioned, we don't get out of that yang state. We stay in a tense state. We stay in a fast moving, let's grind it out. I'm up at 4 a.m. and I'm kicking ass already, like that kind of thinking. And we're leaving our sleep time as the only time to downregulate the system and bring things back into balance, right? And for what we found and what I was doing with my athletes, particularly like the last 10 years, they would come in and they would train, and then we would leave 5 to 6 minutes, and that's all it took to take them out of the super yang state and then start driving them back into a yin recovery state before they left through breathing practices, the immortal pose, standing and holding these classical like kung fu positions, and start convincing the nervous system and convincing the energetics of the body, no, it's time to begin recovering. Mm-hmm. So they would leave the weight room, we'd bring them in, we'd warm them up, we'd jack them to the ceiling, and then we'd calm them back down. And then as they would exit, they're entering the rest of the day in this recovery initiated type state. Yeah. And so for us with the Qigong, that 7 a.m. time, you're usually, most people are coming out of sleep.
Yep.
And then we're really anchoring in calm and homeostasis, right? And then the day ramps up, and then sleep time then encourages that recovery and that yin aspect back into their systems. So what we're doing is we're trying to get them out of that sympathetic back into parasympathetic as quickly as we can, and start making it the new normal. Like I know I'm talking 100 miles an hour here, but when you see us Qigong people or Tai Chi people, there's a calm about all of us.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because we've been doing our practice. The energies in our bodies are balanced, and we're in this very kind of low idle place. So we're not spending as much as we, uselessly with anxiety and the kind of mindless hustle that everybody's going through.
Yeah.
We're in this very calm place a lot, which then keeps us recovering. So Western weight science, like, how do I initiate more recovery? Red light therapies and ice baths. And have you tried Qigong? Because if you want to have like literally like a dart in your neck, come to my Qigong class and you'll feel amazing.
Yeah. The best way I've thought of it is it's like movement with intention, but not urgency.
Yeah.
And where strength training work is that yang dominant, like you're moving, but it feels like there's some aggression to it, where like the yin is just very more like, moving fluidity. There's a surrender to it. There's a letting go, which, sure. There's in Taoism and a lot of different cultures, we talk about surrender and letting go. What was the response like for your athletes with that closeout? Like, did they feel that benefit right away? Was it?
They did.
Yeah,
they did. And the cool part about it was I really started pushing it with the high school kids. Right. And they're, they're young enough and sort of just like wide open enough to where, let's try it, right? But I was able to explain it to them in a way, and with them it wasn't about the heavens come down and the earth chi and spinning. Like, I wasn't doing any of that stuff with them. I was like, guys, we've jacked you way up. Now I need to bring you back down. So we're going to focus on our breath. We're going to hold a really good, strong, classical, kung fu qigong pose, and your posture and how we organize your body is going to allow the energies of all that is to move through you freely, versus these weird postures that we carry in the rest of our lives, from sitting and poor standing posture and sleeping on our sides and all the things we do. We put them in posture so the energy just naturally moves through them. Yeah, we become like a lightning rod, and they could get that. They're like, okay, cool. And then they could feel it. And that's the big thing. When you get done with it, okay, did I stand there like an asshole with my hands up for 5 minutes? Or when I got done, I was like, oh, wow, I totally feel so calm, right? Like when you first introduce belly breathing to somebody and get them to like nasal breathing and box breathing, all that stuff, they feel like they're stoned by the end. And many of them are like, it's like a free high, right? I did breathing correctly. We could institute those types of sensations to the athletes, and they were sold because they could feel it.
Yeah, it's so prevalent. It's funny. I did some of the Tai Chi work from Sifu Singh, for a while, and I was practicing that, and just the posture, stance, and just the whole, like, afterwards, it's one of those things that I didn't fully understand exactly what's going on, but I felt you felt it like within your bones afterwards so easily. I'm like, okay, there's definitely something to this that's going on. And I think it is in the Western side, and even in like the strength training side, we see it so kind of one dimensional of like, this is just the physical body, not looking at the energetic side at the same time. And these practices are the easy ways to flow in. But you've also, I mean, you trained in shamanic work and pagan work and Buddhist work. I mean, you dabble, not even dabbled, you really dove deep into pretty much all different styles of theology and of practice. Looking at everything together, like, what does that reveal to you about like the universal principles of strength and energy that like everybody's kind of saying the same thing in some ways?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this again. I said Tarantino once. We're going to Tarantino this one more time. I'm going to answer it a different way by a question you didn't ask, but I'll bring it back to this. So with the medical qigong, so when my clients come in and see me in the clinic, or my remote clients, and we have our sessions via the computer or the phone. Again, the physical body is a scoreboard, right? And we said that the energy body, or that emotional body, is one of the big drivers on what's going on in the physical body. And then you have the spirit body. And the energy body is actually the glue between the physical and the spirit. So it even becomes less important, very much like the physical body does. And so I'll have people come into me or come into the clinic, and they'll have some terrible disease, right? It's, stage 4 this, or ALS, or I've got 2 Friedreich's ataxia patients, and that's another neurological disorder. And it's stealing their life and their vibrancy from them. What we are able to sense because of all the training we've had, I know it sounds very kind of Jedi-like, but we can detect where the seed of the illness is, and more often than not, you'll find it out in the spirit field, where the spirit is, right? And so when you're able to get that house in order and get them focusing on whatever their decision is in terms of how they feel about the higher power, the creator, the Heavenly Father, whatever your words are, what we see are these miraculous turnarounds with their health, because that spirit body is what's sick. The body's just keeping score. And once we get that illness resolved, the physical body keeps score, like, okay, things are good now, and all the disease goes away, and their body gets back into this healthy, vibrant, thriving state. So when it comes to when we're talking about strength and those pieces, and this is where I may lose some people, but I'm old enough where I don't care anymore. If you're not, our physical body, we drink clean water, and we eat really great foods, and we sleep and those things. With our energy body, it's our emotional stuff. So we're managing how we're feeling, and we go see our therapists, and we read great books on stoicism, when we reframe how we think about the world, and we do our best not to expose ourselves to things that trigger us, right? With the spirit piece of it, it's a part of you that cannot be denied, right? I drink my water and I eat my food to take care of the physical body, but the spirit needs sustenance also. Mm-hmm. Well, that means I go to church, or I'm in the scriptures, or I'm in prayer, or I'm deep in meditation. I'm in any kind of place where the spirit is the receiver of what we're doing. What we find is the rest of the body gets back into a thriving state, and the tissues get to do their thing. Yeah. And so when it comes to strength, if I was working, say, for example, we just got to see one of the most incredible World Series ever. Yeah. If I got to work with one of those guys, half of what we would work on is their spiritual walk. Like, what's going on in their spiritual walk that's hanging them up? And again, I'm not a dogmatic religious zealot, but I am someone who understands we're feeling the sick by getting their spirit together. So if you're the starting pitcher for whatever team, or you're the quarterback for whatever team, and you're struggling, can we look at that spirit, and can we take the brakes off of that so that athleticism, that talent, all that stuff can come forward and really shine through? Does that make sense?
It does. I think what's challenging for a lot of us is the physical side is so easy to understand. You want to get healthier, eat healthier food or drink cleaner water. You like see it in front of you of like, oh, this is an apple versus a Cheeto, right? It's like you know that you're making a difference there.
Right.
There's an objectivity to it. Same with, I always say, like the easiest thing with physical strength is just lift weights. Like if you lifted one weight, you're lifting a heavier weight later, you've gotten stronger. Like it's an easy thing to measure. So I think we often go to that just because the measurables and the biomarkers are so much easier to understand. With the spirit, like the spiritual biomarkers, or even like the mental side of how do I know what I need or that I'm getting better or I'm making progress on that. That's when I think a lot of people get confused or it's very foggy from there. Do I go to scripture? Do I go to religion? Do I go to meditation? Like, what do I do from there? So as you kind of mentioned, like if you were working with like the World Series team, like what's the approach to start feeding your spiritual health a more nutritious and give it some sustenance, if you will?
So I'm gonna take a professional leap here, right? But I trust me, all my people they trust the message. So I'm preaching to a brand new group of people. Your sleep, okay? Your sleep, and we all, I wear an Aura ring typically, yeah, most of the day, Whoops and Fitbits and Apple Watches, all that stuff. Your sleep measurables are a great way to determine whether or not that spirit piece is a little bit in turmoil. Okay. If you watch breathing hygiene, okay, so things like sleep apnea and stuff, we understand, we know, and we have like scientific evidence that's a spiritual thing. Okay. Um, Frequent wake ups, restless sleep, not enough REM, not enough deep, all those things. We know that's a spirit thing. Okay. Now, sure, all the sleep scientists will say, well, no, and they'll throw in their deal. But from the Chinese energetic medicine side of things, we know that's a spirit driven thing. So the way I would say to somebody who needs their evidence, right? So if you look behind me, there's the Holy Bible. So we've all known what to do. It's just the doing it. It's like eating healthy, right? I would love to go in the refrigerator and make a quesadilla and chips and salsa and like just chill today, right? I know though that's not the selection. I need to go get the vegetables. I need to go get the lean meat, whatever it might be. We've always known the answer. Yeah. So get into your book, whatever your book is, because every one of them has a book. And what we know is, and back to that whole idea about yin, okay? From our framework, sleep, meditation, and prayer are the only things that restore the yin back in the body. And then you can through some herbal things and also through some of your foods, but that's it, okay? When we talk about the spirit side, I would say to somebody who just, I want proof, give me some proof. My next question would be, okay, well, tell me about your sleep. How's your sleep? Do you go to sleep easily? Well, or do you stay asleep? Well, and they'll give me their reasons and all their sort of presumed ideas. And if I were to tell them, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little Qigong work, and then I'm going to have you really lean into wherever your faith is. So if you're a Christian, that means you're going to pick your Bible up and you're going to read 10 minutes a day. Or you're going to spend some time in prayer. Or you're going to spend some time in just silent meditation in an attempt to hear what the creator has to say. If you're a Buddhist, you pick up your beads, you do your Om Mani Padme Hum, you do all of the typical meditative type rituals that way. If you're a Taoist, you pick the morning and daily scriptures up. You do the things we all know to do and watch how it affects your sleep. And what you'll find is more restful sleep, because that's when the spirit gets its recharge. Okay. And there'll be just balance and harmony and happiness. And what you're going to find is when this starts spitting up all my data, I know when I'm in the pocket really well with the energetics and spiritual side because my aura ring tells me so. Now I can fake it. I've got magnesium over here,
Right.
and I've got melatonin, and a lot of people do the gummies thing. Like you can fake that.
You can give sedation, not restfulness.
Sedation, right? But the truth of it is your sleep's a really big indicator, and I encourage anyone who's listening, I need that proof, and I agree with you. What Western science does, and it's their strength, but it's also their biggest weakness, is they want concrete evidence, and we need to measure it, and I got this machine that measures that. Like, they're great about that. And my argument for the proof that you need is get into your book and then tell me how your sleep is, and then you'll get your answer.
Yeah. It's It's funny, even that word proof, Chris, is so fascinating, right? It's because we can't really prove anything if you start just going through that layer of one thing or another, right? If you're out of shape and you're getting in shape and someone says go lift weights and you're going to get in shape, right? It's like, well, you can look at other people to say they've done this and that's your proof on there, but you're not going to really prove it until you do it yourself and then you feel the change and the benefit as well.
Right.
But the thing that it feels like the connection with all of these, like sleep is the one spot now where everybody, it's the only time that people are in silence is when they're asleep, right? That or taking a shower, right? We're in a abundance of noise in everywhere that we are, and you can't be in a divine state or a parasympathetic state if you have noise all over. And I found that just by reading scripture, just by going a little bit of meditation, that first 5 minutes of just allowing just to sit back and get into that breath is enough to just let the noise drop down, and that's enough to put you in that process. So
Yes.
it's fast, and I like what you said. It's like it's not just one dogmatic thing or not. If it's if it's the Bible, if it's the Torah, whatever it is for me, just the practice of it is the most important part.
It's like me showing up to that class. My spirit knew, right? It was new. It was home. It was, and that's what our preferred faiths do for us. It's to instill peace and connection, right? It's the most organic, most profound thing that we have in our lives, that connection, connection like you and I are having right now, connection with the Heavenly Father, and or that peace that I get when I look to my scriptures and I know that this is the Word of God and those things, and it automatically starts setting me up for restful times, right? How many was just like, okay, my show's over, or I got to get to bed because if I don't get to bed now, it's going to be 7 hours, and now if I stay up, okay, it's 6 hours. Like we do all that craziness. What about opening, whatever it is that you use as your guide, and allowing that to bring you down, yeah, and then trying to sleep then and see what happens, and measure it through your devices, and it'll be there, I promise.
Have you seen in yourself as well as the people you worked with of the physical benefits on strength or power or like speed or two? Was there benefits to like the physical side of performance that you saw when you instilled these spiritual practices with the people that you were
Yeah,
working with?
100%. And what you were seeing was recovery. It goes back to recovery. Like I don't, I'm out of the game for the most part now, so I'm a dinosaur when it comes to ideas and how I would write programs. I'm probably in terms of what's in vogue anymore, somebody who'd be considered very old school. But when we did any of this stuff with the athletes, and we did a study in 2015 at Cal Poly, that's now being framed for an LSU doctorate, which you'll get to see it at some point. We did this morning qigong practice that we do every morning at 7. That same practice is the one we use with them, and the strength numbers were just stupid. It was as if those kids who were participating, and we had a huge group. We had a giant group of people. There were over 100 people that started the test. So when you work, all you science minded people, and you're working, how many participants, and like how much meat was on the bone as far as the study goes, we exceeded all those numbers. Yes, there was some reduction as we went because people had to fall out for whatever reason, but we still ended up with very strong statistical numbers. And we were able to prove 5 of 6, I think it was 5 of 6 different measurables that showed a clear, like, not only statistical, but just monumental difference in how the athletes who were doing the Qigong work with us, who were getting up and doing, the daily set with us, over, and I think it was an 8-week period is what we did it for. Their strength numbers were through the roof, and it was like they were taking something exogenous in, whether it be TRT or super supplements,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, clearly doing something, and it was really great. So we with the strength piece, I'm having some opportunities come up, working with some really impressive individuals, and and I got my hands on some very well known professional athletes, and we're starting that journey with them. And what they're going to see is their injury rates are going to drop dramatically, because when you rebalance the energies of the body, all the tissues benefit. So when you think about ligaments and muscle strains, when all that's in balance, and and those tissues are happy, the incidence of injury are going to drop dramatically. And then with them, sleep, performance, and all this
Yeah.
stuff, focus. Can you stand at the free throw line and independent of all the noise and BS that's behind, people waving the whatever the blow up things are, and um, can you just stand there and be just like just nails from the line, right? Um, all this comes in, and you can't neglect any one thing. It's part of the entire whole of who we are, right? And so if in the Chinese medicine world, 33% of you is that spirit. So what are you doing to get that spirit strong?
That's so fascinating. It's interesting. When I asked that question, my first thought was about kind of focus within the weight room or when you're there, kind of like the free throw line stuff. I think that's an easy one to go into. But as you talked about the benefit of it on the recovery side, as we talked about with sleep, but just the going from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, how like that is so important when you are a strength athlete or even just a weekend warrior, somebody who's trying to stay healthy and strong. It's like the recovery, there's so much talk about recovery, which is sauna and red light, which like, yeah, there's some benefits to it, but just that time of just spiritual connection, which is going to benefit your sleep and getting some results like you're on TRT or some super physiological substances from there. That is the benefit that you can get. So seeing it from the recovery side is very interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Well, it's been my push the whole time. Even when I was just starting out and we were doing doctoral theses and we're putting studies together, it was always like, no, this is going to accelerate recovery. Like and it's exactly when you're taking testosterone, for example, it's a recovery. It's just speeding the recovery process up so I can go in tomorrow and do it again, right? And so how can I do that not from an outside coming in, but what I already have inside? Can I actually institute a lot of those things? And create the environment so my body can get into that recovery state faster, just like the hormone replacement stuff does. We're just using a completely different medium to do so. And so recovery is always going to be, when it comes to what we do with the Qigong or Tai Chi or any of the mindfulness practices, it's always going to be, you're trying to influence recovery in the most profound way possible. And it's literally a foolproof way to get there easily.
So now, I mean, in the last couple years now, the work that you're doing is deep into Christian mysticism and diving into those courses. But from what you're seeing now, along with all the experience that you've had from like a cultural standpoint, what's the biggest challenge and question that people are coming to you with or asking you about for developing their inner strength or really their strength as a whole from there? Is there specific things that seem to keep coming up when people are jumping into your courses and you're talking with people?
When people come to my course, they know what they're getting, right? So when you talk about Christian mysticism, it's not sitting around and I'm reading scripture to them and we're talking about what this passage means. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's not like you think. It's about a lot of the mystical practices that were used during that era and during those times and currently that help the priests and the shamans and the medicine men and women develop their skills. Like if you read any work on shaman practices, right? They have very specific things that they do, and they go in a very specific order. And you don't do this until you finish with that, and it's just like you're qualifying as you move down the rungs. We know what all those practices are, and we have really great teachers who understand the meditations and all the things that come along with that. The people who are coming to me, they know what they're getting. So of course, it's as a Christian, it's my hope that we turn as many people towards God as we can, right? That's one of the goals. But I know in my space, the people who are going to come to me, they want to go deeper, they want to go further. If we want to really frame it so people understand, like if you read in the New Testament, Jesus disappears basically between 10 and 30, 10 and 29, right? Well, what was he doing? And so the idea is, there's four prevailing discussions around that. Was he local with the Essenes, who was a sect of really high powerful mystics, and he was learning their practices? Did he stay in Nazareth and just was he a carpenter and doing those things? And then there's I don't know if it's evidence, even though I think we do have some evidence, because even as recent as a couple of years ago, my business partner, Dr. Wolf, was in Nepal, and they know about Jesus there, and he was there. and or was he in, in India and Egypt and learning their things? And then he came back to do the fantastic. He had the gift to begin with, but he was still a man needing to learn how to institute all of that ability, right? To hone his craft. That's what we teach. That's what the mysticism is. It's like we're filling in those 18, 19 years,
Okay.
right? With these practices that we assume that he did, and then developing our own radiance and filling ourselves with the light and all those things. It's a hard sell for a lot of people, because what we find, and this, I don't even know what it is your faith is, but people have such a recoil with organized religion. They've been burnt. They've seen someone be burnt. They hear the terrible stories from the church, on the news, and all the horrors that go on. And my statement to all those people was, and what does that have to do with God?
Yeah.
That's people messing things up.
Yeah.
Let's get to the brass tacks of this. Okay, you don't want to go to church. Awesome. I don't want to go to church a lot too, because I don't want to be around the people either. However, it has nothing to do with your communion, your relationship with your Creator, and with the energies in your spirit. And that's what we're cultivating.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I have to do it with people, or I got to deal with, whatever it is that's my hang up. And it's what a lot of my people who are sick come into me. I'm like asking one of my intake questions, and it's not really a question, it's a statement. It's the last thing I say to them. And I'm more looking for what kind of response they're going to give me with their physical body, right? So the question is, tell me about God. And then I sit there with this stoic look on my face, and they the ones who hate, they get into their, like, the body tells me, and the one's like, oh, it's one of the, you get this big response, but it gives me a quick snapshot and understanding what's going on in that spirit field, and how we're going to be able to put their program together, and my approach to their healing, how we're going to institute that by just that simple statement.
Yeah.
And so it's the mysticism part of it is unique and beautiful, and the people who go through it and they finish, they love it, and it's such a foundation to who they become. But it's hard work. It's just like anything else. And it's in even my brothers and sisters who are like Sunday Christians, they think that we're, mysticism. What is that? What are you doing?
Oh, I know it's a very sexy word that you can throw out there, right? It's like,
right.
But it is. I think you brought up a good point, Chris, right? It's like, faith is one of those things. It's like politics, right? Like, we can argue it for, forever, because, there's an anecdotal experience that somebody has, which you can't deny in there. But then there's also people who are preaching it. Maybe they're not great articulators of it. So, people are trying to always, foil it. They want to go into theirs. But you can kind of use a lot of different lenses to see this as well. Like, I've seen it in fitness for 17 years, right? How many people are throwing things out about fitness that are completely false, and everybody's arguing over the micro details of it. But it doesn't mean that the foundations of, principles of being healthy and fit are not true. Like, it just means that there's a lot of noise on the outskirts of things that people are arguing about, but it doesn't diminish the truth of it. And that's like, for personally, like, this is an exploration on my own, faith that I've been working on for a while. I know a lot of other people that I'm talking to at the same time as well, but I know the more that I've dove into it and surrender to it and practice it, the better I felt, the better my strength has felt. So, like, there is a tangible connection of what I'm aiming to get for, like, whether I know, like, exactly in front of me of exactly what it is, maybe I'll never fully know, but I know it's a benefit to me, so it's worth it to explore.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's my job and the job of the people in my world to try to push the envelope now. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing with that morning practice. Is we're making it free to everybody. Come, experience it, feel how you feel, right? And so that's undeniable, and something real is happening. And then it shows up in the gym, shows up in the bedroom, it shows up in your relationships. All the things. My digestion's better, my sleep is so great now, and my ability to focus on my kids is just nails. What's going on here? It's because we're creating that balance, and we're reinstituting some of that calm back into the space.
I love it. Yeah. Chris Holder. Chris, dude, I'm happy that there are people like you out there, because the ones who have been in kind of two very different sectors, from the Western side of the physical side of strength, but really have committed their time into understanding the Eastern side and this world and really blending them together. As I said, I think this is important. I think there's so much merit to it, and the more people can understand it and practice it for themselves, I think they're going to be better off from there. So I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your insights.
And what I'll do is I'll talk privately, but I'll get you that Zoom link, and all your people, yourself, anybody who could find some benefit in trying something new, something a little funky, but something that we know works. We'll get that Zoom link, and people can show up at 7 a.m. Pacific and join us. It's what we're looking to do.
I love it. Perfect. Till next time. I'd love to have you back. I love talking to you. So
let's not wait 6 or 7 years.
that sounds like a perfect plan. All right, listeners, thank you so much. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.